When Quentin Tarantino talks westerns, you listen. This guy didn't just watch the classics, he devoured them, stole from them, and made them bloodier, louder, and cooler. Some of these films are so wild, so brutal, they got banned or nearly forgotten. What makes a western worthy of Tarantino's stamp? Is it the violence, the style, or just pure, unfiltered revenge? Buckle up, because we're diving into 12 westerns that shaped Tarantino's world, and one of them was banned for pushing the limits of violence too far. The Great Silence, 1968. If you think Tarantino's movies are violent, wait till you meet The Great Silence. Directed by Sergio Corbucci, this is the western that shattered the genre with its bleakness and raw brutality. Set in a snow-covered Utah town, the film paints a grim picture where morality isn't black and white, but soaked in blood and cold despair. Klaus Kinski stars as Loco, a ruthless bounty hunter who's more monster than man, murdering without a flicker of remorse. The stakes? A mute gunslinger named Silence, hired by a grieving widow to bring justice in a lawless land. This movie doesn't pull punches. Its violence is relentless and shocking, but what really sets it apart is the ending, so nihilistic that major studios refuse to release it in the US. The bad guys win. The good guys don't get a last stand or a heroic victory. Silence dies, the town burns, and the darkness wins. It was banned in several countries, and even today, it's the kind of ending that leaves you breathless, wondering if you just watched a western or a tragedy dressed in cowboy boots. Tarantino calls it one of the most nihilistic endings in Western history, and when you watch The Great Silence, you can see how its tone bled into his work, how violence isn't glamorous and revenge isn't always sweet. The haunting score, by Luis Enriquez Bacalov, who Tarantino credits for inspiring his own film music choices, adds to the icy tension. This isn't your usual shoot-'em-up. It's a story about despair, survival, and the cost of justice in a world that forgot how to be fair. The Great Silence is brutal, bleak, and unforgettable, a dark mirror that reflects the violent chaos Tarantino loves to explore. If you want a western that pushes the limits of the genre and your nerves, this is the one. Django, 1966. Before Django Unchained was a household name, there was the original Django, a spaghetti western that packed more punches than a fistfight in a saloon brawl. Directed by Sergio Corbucci and starring Franco Nero, Django isn't just a revenge story, it's a revenge symphony with a coffin dragged through the mud as its chilling leitmotif. Django, a former Union soldier, drags that infamous coffin with him everywhere he goes. Why? Inside, it's a secret weapon, sometimes a body, sometimes a promise. He's out for blood against Major Jackson, the Confederate officer who ruined his life and killed the woman he loved. The film's rough edges, gritty violence, and morally gray characters set it apart from the clean-cut westerns of the past. What really made Django notorious was its graphic violence for the time. It was outright banned in the UK for being too intense and brutal. Tarantino has said this film shaped his idea of what a western could be: raw, edgy, and dripping with attitude. Not to mention the soundtrack by Luis Bacalov, which Tarantino recycled in his own films, adding a timeless coolness to the dusty brawls and gunfights. The influence runs deep. The look, the mood, and the relentless drive for vengeance are echoed in Django Unchained. Franco Nero himself makes a memorable cameo in Tarantino's film, bridging the old and the new. But unlike the slicker Hollywood westerns, the original Django revels in its rough, unpolished charm, where violence isn't sanitized and heroes aren't flawless. Django redefined the genre by showing that the West was a brutal, unforgiving place, perfect for revenge stories soaked in grit and dust. It's a hard-hitting classic that reminds you why Tarantino keeps coming back to spaghetti westerns for inspiration. Machine Gun Killers, 1967. If you thought Django was intense, wait till you get a load of Machine Gun Killers. Directed by Sergio Corbucci, this film takes Western violence to a whole new level, so much so that it was banned in Britain for its graphic brutality. It's a wild, rough ride about Richard Gatling, the man who invented the Gatling gun, and the chaos that follows when his deadly invention falls into the wrong hands. The story's set during the Civil War, where Confederate and Union forces are desperate to control this game-changing weapon. John Ireland plays Tarpus, a ruthless outlaw who kidnaps Gatling to sell the machine gun to both sides, double-crossing everyone for a fortune. Meanwhile, Robert Woods stars as Chris Tanner, a tough undercover agent accused of multiple murders, trying to clear his name while rescuing Gatling and keeping the weapon out of enemy hands. This isn't your typical shoot-'em-up. The violence here is relentless and raw, with gunfights that feel brutal and unforgiving. It's the kind of movie that doesn't glamorize war but shows its ugly, merciless side. Tarantino respects Corbucci's vision here for pushing boundaries and mixing historical fiction with chaotic action that still holds up today. What makes Machine Gun Killers stand out is its unapologetic energy. The film races forward with a savage intensity, never letting up. It's part history, part revenge thriller, and all heart-pounding tension. Tarantino included it in his top spaghetti westerns for a reason. It's one of the most merciless westerns ever made, and it helped redefine what violence on screen could look like. If you're looking for a western that's as wild and ruthless as the era it depicts, Machine Gun Killers is a gritty masterpiece that's worth every intense minute, even if it scared the censors back in the day. Death Rides a Horse 1967. Death Rides a Horse hits like a thunderclap, fast, loud, and impossible to ignore. It's a revenge western that centers on two men locked in a deadly dance of vengeance, their fates tangled by blood and betrayal. John Philip Law stars as Bill, a young man consumed by the brutal murder of his family and determined to hunt down the outlaws responsible. But just when you think it's a straightforward tale of revenge, enter Lee Van Cleef as Ryan, freshly released from prison after 15 years, with his own mysterious score to settle against the very same killers. Two Avengers, one target, and a collision course set to explode in violent fireworks. This film is a textbook spaghetti western, stylish, tense, and loaded with psychological complexity. Tarantino's affection for it runs deep. In fact, if you've watched Kill Bill, you've already felt its echoes. From the way it masterfully handles revenge with a chilling musical tension to the haunting score by Ennio Morricone, Death Rides a Horse practically wrote the playbook. That iconic line, "Revenge is a dish best served cold," comes directly from this film, forever engraving it into the fabric of revenge stories. The shootouts aren't just about quick draws, they're carefully choreographed moments, dripping with suspense and emotional weight. But don't mistake this for just a stylish shoot-'em-up. Beneath its slick exterior, the film delves into darker themes that resonate long after the credits roll. It explores trust and betrayal, and the heavy toll revenge exacts on the human soul. Bill begins to suspect Ryan may not be the ally he seems, injecting the story with a gripping layer of suspense that keeps you guessing. Who can you trust when everyone has a secret? It's a brutal exploration of how the past haunts the present, blurring lines between hero and villain, justice and obsession. Tarantino's admiration for Death Rides a Horse isn't surface-level fandom. He's lifted music cues, narrative beats, and the film's relentless emotional intensity to craft some of his own most memorable scenes. The movie perfectly balances high-octane action with complex, conflicted characters, all wrapped in that gritty, spaghetti western style that feels raw and authentic. For anyone wanting to understand the roots of modern revenge westerns, this film is essential viewing. It's a masterclass in tension, storytelling, and the price of vengeance. Navajo Joe 1976. If you think spaghetti westerns are all about white cowboys, Navajo Joe flips the script with one of the most brutal Native American revenge tales ever told. Directed by Sergio Corbucci and starring Burt Reynolds, this film dives headfirst into a savage world where the lines between hero and villain blur into dust and blood. Joe, a fierce Navajo warrior, returns to find his tribe massacred by vicious bandits. What follows is a relentless hunt for justice. And let's just say, he's not holding back. Tarantino calls Navajo Joe brutal, and it's easy to see why. The villains in this film aren't just bad guys, they're savage to the core, making Joe's quest feel like a righteous rampage. Behind the scenes, the movie was a mess. Burt Reynolds hated the chaotic shoot and the lack of direction, calling it the most unprofessional film he'd ever done. But despite the troubles, Navajo Joe still packs a punch. Tarantino respects its raw energy and even lifted music cues from the movie's score for Kill Bill. It's the kind of gritty revenge flick that leaves you breathless, soaked in sweat and dust. Before the Wild Bunch redefined violent westerns for America, Navajo Joe was already pushing boundaries, carrying a major studio logo but showing violence and intensity rarely seen on screen. It's not polished or pretty, but it's honest, a brutal story told with unflinching grit and an unforgettable lead. If you want to see Tarantino's fascination with revenge that's raw, relentless, and full of edge, Navajo Joe is your ticket. Rio Bravo 1959. When Tarantino talks about westerns, Rio Bravo is always at the top of his list, not because of bloody shootouts or wild revenge, but for its unique hangout vibe. Directed by Howard Hawks and starring the legendary John Wayne, Dean Martin, and Ricky Nelson, this film isn't just about gunfights, it's about the characters you spend time with, their camaraderie, and that slow-building tension that keeps you hooked. The story is classic. John Wayne plays a sheriff holding a dangerous prisoner in a small Texas town while a gang tries to break him out. But it's the oddball team that helps him, a drunk, a cripple, and a young sharpshooter, that gives the movie its charm. Tarantino describes Rio Bravo as one of the greatest hangout movies ever made because you don't just watch these guys, you get to know them, feel their frustrations, and root for their unlikely brotherhood. Tarantino first saw this movie when he was 5 years old with his great-grandmother, and it stuck with him for life. The slow burn moments, the witty banter, and that feeling of being part of the gang influenced how Tarantino crafts character-driven tension in his own films. While Rio Bravo isn't the most violent Western on this list, its impact on Tarantino is huge. It proves you don't always need blood and bullets to make a gripping Western. Sometimes it's the friendships and the waiting that build the real suspense. If you want to experience the quieter side of Western greatness, Rio Bravo is the perfect place to start. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966. No list of Tarantino-approved Westerns is complete without The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the legendary finale to Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy. Clint Eastwood's iconic Blondie, Lee Van Cleef's cold Angel Eyes, and Eli Wallach's chaotic Tuco all chase after buried gold during the chaos of the Civil War, leading to one of the most unforgettable standoffs in film history. Tarantino openly calls this one of his all-time favorites, and it's easy to see why. The movie's mix of sweeping landscapes, intense close-ups, and Ennio Morricone's unforgettable score creates a mood that's part epic adventure, part deadly game. This film redefined what a Western could be, larger than life but grounded in moral ambiguity, where heroes and villains aren't so easy to tell apart. What makes The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly so influential for Tarantino is how it blends style and story seamlessly. The tension, the character dynamics, and the pacing all inspire his own filmmaking rhythm. Plus, the soundtrack has become synonymous with cool. Tarantino's love for Morricone's music shines through in everything from Kill Bill to The Hateful Eight. This film isn't just a Western. It's a cultural icon that shaped how violence, humor, and suspense mix on screen. For anyone wanting to understand the roots of Tarantino's Western obsession, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the ultimate starting point. Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. If there's a Western that feels less like a movie and more like an operatic masterpiece, it's Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West. This film doesn't just tell a story, it unfolds like a vast, slow-burning epic that drips with atmosphere, haunting music, and unforgettable characters who stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Henry Fonda, famously known for his heroic roles, flips the script here by playing a cold-blooded villain so chilling and calculating that you can't look away. Meanwhile, Charles Bronson's mysterious harmonica arrives like a shadow from the past, carrying a vendetta that plays out with icy, chilling precision. Tarantino has openly declared this film one of the greatest visual storytellers of all time, and it's easy to see why. The way Leone masterfully uses silence, letting tension simmer in the space between words and shots, is pure cinematic magic. His extreme close-ups capture every flicker of emotion and every second of anticipation, creating a mood that's as thick as gunpowder. And don't overlook the title itself, Once Upon a Time in the West, directly inspired Tarantino's own Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, signaling just how deep Leone's influence runs through his work. But don't be fooled by the film's deliberately slow pace. Every frame feels intentional, every pause heavy with meaning, and every gunshot hard-earned. This isn't a fast-action shoot-'em-up, it's a carefully crafted symphony of suspense and emotion. And then there's Ennio Morricone's legendary soundtrack, a score so iconic it practically becomes a character itself, wrapping the audience in a sonic landscape that's at once haunting, beautiful, and deadly. Morricone's music elevates every scene, weaving tension and heartbreak into the fabric of the story. Once Upon a Time in the West demands patience and focus, but it rewards you with one of the most unforgettable cinematic experiences ever made. For Tarantino, it's a masterclass in blending style with substance, showing how a Western can be as epic and nuanced as the sprawling landscapes it portrays. This film isn't just a Western, it's a timeless legend told through music, silence, and the slow crack of a gunshot. The Wild Bunch, 1969. If you think Westerns are just about white hats and clean shootouts, The Wild Bunch shatters that myth with a brutal, grimy, and unforgettable dive into the chaos of a dying era. Directed by Sam Peckinpah, this film wasn't just violent for shock value, it redefined what violence on screen could mean. Tarantino openly credits it as a huge influence on his own approach to filmmaking, especially his love for stylized brutality with emotional weight. Set in 1913, The Wild Bunch follows a gang of aging outlaws trying to pull off one last heist before the old ways are gone for good. The world is moving on, with new technology and law enforcement that doesn't care about honor among thieves. What makes this movie so powerful isn't just the action, it's the way Peckinpah shows every bullet having consequences. The gunfights are shot in slow motion, dripping with blood and sweat, making every death feel real and heavy. Tarantino admires how Peckinpah mixes raw violence with deep themes of loyalty, betrayal, and survival in a world that's changing too fast. Unlike many westerns before it, The Wild Bunch refuses to glamorize violence. It's ugly, messy, and sometimes heartbreaking. This gritty realism paved the way for modern directors, including Tarantino himself, to show violence as a story tool, not just spectacle. The characters aren't heroes or villains, they're flawed, desperate men trying to hold on to their identity as the world leaves them behind. That moral ambiguity is a key part of why Tarantino respects this film so much. It's a violent, complex masterpiece that balances bloodshed with humanity, setting a new bar for what westerns, and movies in general, could be. If you want to see the blueprint for modern violent westerns, The Wild Bunch is essential viewing. It's intense, emotional, and totally unforgettable. My Name is Nobody, 1973. If you think all westerns have to be serious, grim, and soaked in blood, My Name is Nobody rolls in like a breath of fresh air, playful, witty, and packed with charm. Starring Terence Hill as the young gunslinger, Nobody, and Henry Fonda as the legendary Jack Beauregard, this film cleverly blends classic Western tropes with a self-aware, almost cheeky tone that Quentin Tarantino definitely respects. It's like the genre took a friendly wink at itself and decided to have some fun. The story follows Nobody, a wide-eyed admirer of Beauregard who's ready to hang up his guns and retire. But Nobody's got his own plans. He wants to push Jack into a legendary final showdown that will make sure the Old West goes out with a bang, leaving behind a mythic legacy. The film's mix of light-hearted humor, thrilling action, and clever character moments gives it a unique flavor that stands out among more traditional westerns. Expect stylized shootouts and moments of genuine heart, all wrapped up in a story that's as much about legends passing on as it is about gunfights. What Tarantino admires most about My Name is Nobody is how it pays homage to the spaghetti western genre without taking itself too seriously. The film captures that bittersweet feeling of a changing West, the fading of old legends, and the rise of new ones, balancing tribute with gentle parody. It's funny, it's thrilling, and it even sneaks in moments that are surprisingly touching, reminding us that behind every myth is a human story. The dynamic between Hill and Fonda feels fresh and fun, with a buddy chemistry that keeps things light but never shallow. Visually, the movie channels the best of Sergio Leone's work, boasting stunning landscapes and dramatic close-ups that elevate even the quietest moments. It proves the Western genre can evolve, becoming playful and cool without losing the heart and soul that makes it timeless. If you're after a Western that's stylish, entertaining, and just a little offbeat, but still bursting with classic Western spirit, My Name is Nobody is the perfect pick. It shows that the Wild West can be a place for legends, laughter, and a whole lot of fun. One-Eyed Jacks, 1961. One-Eyed Jacks stands apart as a dark, brooding Western that wears its scars like battle wounds. Directed by and starring Marlon Brando, his only time in the director's chair, this film dives deep into a world of betrayal, revenge, and twisted relationships. Unlike most westerns that unfold in dusty deserts, One-Eyed Jacks uses the stunning coastal landscapes of California as its backdrop, giving it a unique, almost haunting atmosphere. It's a slow burn, simmering with tension and emotional wreckage left in the aftermath of greed and vengeance. Brando plays Rio, a charismatic outlaw who's double-crossed by his partner during a robbery, left for dead, but somehow survives. What follows is a methodical, intense journey of revenge, fueled by pain and obsession. The production of the film is almost as legendary as the story itself. Stanley Kubrick was originally set to direct, but walked away just weeks before shooting, leaving Brando to take the reins with mixed results. That behind-the-scenes chaos adds to the film's mythic status, making it a fascinating piece of Hollywood history as well as cinema. Tarantino ranks One-Eyed Jacks among his top 3 westerns, praising its raw emotional power and complex characters. The film breaks away from the classic Western archetypes. Here, the story is as much about inner demons and psychological depth as it is about gunfights and shootouts. Its moody, brooding tone creates an unforgettable atmosphere, where every glance and silence is loaded with meaning. It's a haunting, tragic tale that lingers long after the last shot echoes. If you're looking for a Western that's more than just gunsmoke and gold, One-Eyed Jacks offers a deeply personal, powerful exploration of revenge and loss, crafted through Brando's uncompromising and unique vision. It's a cinematic experience that sticks with you long after the credits roll. The Hateful Eight, 2015. No list of Tarantino-approved Westerns would be complete without his very own The Hateful Eight. This film is like a love letter to the genre's roots, wrapped in Tarantino's unmistakable style, tight, razor-sharp dialogue, simmering tension, and sudden, brutal bursts of violence that hit like lightning. Most of the action unfolds inside a cramped, snowbound cabin, creating a claustrophobic thriller charged with suspicion, secrets, and deadly lies. The story brings together 8 strangers, each harboring their own hidden agendas, forced to weather a fierce blizzard together. What begins as a tense standoff soon spirals into chaos, with alliances forming and breaking in a powder keg of mistrust. Tarantino's obsession with old-school Western tension is on full display here. He masterfully blends slow-burning suspense with explosive, perfectly choreographed gunfights that keep you on edge from start to finish. One of the film's standout features is the reunion of Tarantino with legendary composer Ennio Morricone, who crafted his first full Western score for this movie and won an Oscar for it. Morricone's music elevates every scene, fusing classic Western motifs with a modern, haunting edge that amplifies the film's dark atmosphere and dramatic twists. The Hateful Eight is equal parts brutal, witty, and darkly humorous, a cocktail that makes it one of the freshest modern entries in the Western saga Tarantino cherishes. It respects the genre's traditions while injecting Tarantino's signature storytelling flair, long, tense dialogues, vivid characters, and that perfect balance of suspense and bloodshed. If you want to witness how Tarantino's lifelong love for Westerns translates into his own cinematic masterpiece, The Hateful Eight is the ultimate example, classic Western storytelling given a fresh, bloody, and unforgettable twist. There you have it, 12 westerns that shaped Quentin Tarantino's wild, violent, and endlessly cool take on the genre. From banned classics to epic sagas, these films prove westerns aren't just about cowboys, they're about vengeance, style, and stories that cut deep. Which one are you adding to your watch list? Drop your pick in the comments, smash that subscribe button for more deep dives, and share this with your fellow movie buffs. Because when it comes to westerns, the legend is far from over.